Women have been giving birth for centuries, so it's a pretty natural experience, right? Wrong. I'm Stephanie King, professional doula, childbirth educator, and the creator of the My Essential Birth course, the online childbirth education course that's helping women everywhere confidently achieve their best birth. Today's culture would have us think that birth should be treated like an illness or an emergency, and that most of us need other people telling us what's best for our bodies because we aren't the experts. So sit tight, because if you're tuning into this podcast, you'll probably start to believe in your body, your intuition, and find yourself empowered and confident to do what it takes to have the birth of your dreams. If you like listening to me take you through these weekly topics step by step, then you're going to love the My Essential Birth course. Make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast, and definitely head over to myessentialbirth.com for the free downloads mentioned right here in these episodes, and to join the birth course and community full of pregnant moms just like you. I have to add a disclaimer that I am not a medical professional and I cannot provide medical advice. All of the information expressed in this podcast are based off of personal, professional, and educational experiences and are my own opinions. Please work with a provider you trust for medical advice during your pregnancy and birth. Okay, our reviewer of the week is Allie Breezy, and she says, making pregnancy fun. This podcast has transformed my energy and excitement around my pregnancy. Thank you for helping me turn fear off the unknown to excitement around the magic of growing a human. And it's been super fun for me and my fiance to listen together. Thank you so much, Allie, for leaving a review. Thank you for listening with your fiance. I'm glad that you think it's fun. I'm hoping Annie and I, who is here with me today, are going to make it even more fun for you guys. And I hope that you're learning a ton along the way. So again, if you haven't left a review yet, head to Apple Podcast, scroll down to write a review, leave the stars, write a review. I would love to hear from you. All right, this week we're talking about a topic that I think every pregnant mom should be learning about right now. It's something that I wish I would have known more about myself, and that is baby wearing. This is another topic, again, I didn't learn until I had all my kids, and then at least not enough to be useful, because truly I wanted to wear them. But they were like, I think my youngest was 3 at the time. And not that you can't wear your 3-year-old, but...
Oh, no, you can.
You can.
You totally can.
When you're very tiny like me, they're not far off in size. So, and I did actually borrow a wrap, and I'll get into that a little later. And I did wear my 3 and 5-year-old actually, but they were too wiggly and too much boy going on at the time. But I want to make sure that you guys get all the info. So we're going to talk, I want to cover some basic baby wearing things, like when you can start wearing your baby, the best carriers for each size, and at what age those should change, and how to find support near you, among some other topics that we're going to cover. So without further ado, I would like to take a moment and have Annie introduce herself. Tell me a little bit about you. I found Annie on a Facebook group in, what was it? Is it Weber Davis?
Yeah.
Babywearing
Weber Davis County.
That's what it is. Yep. Weber Davis County. Anyway, so I reached out to someone in the group. I got attached to Annie here, and now she's going to come and tell us a little bit about her. So tell me about you.
Yeah, so my name's Annie, as you already know. I have 3 kids. I learned about baby wearing with my second, but we thought we were only having 2 kids, so I didn't really get into it much because, he was 9, 10 months old when I first learned about it. And, he's getting too big, and we're not going to get much use out of it. Well, fast forward like another year, I'm pregnant. Surprise! And so, yeah, I've been doing lots of baby wearing stuff with my baby. And I was amazed to learn that my older children still really loved being worn, even though they were perfectly capable of walking and being independent. They just loved the closeness, the snuggles, the attention. So I've been doing that, and actually volunteer with the Babywearing and Weber Davis County group. I'm one of their volunteer admins, and I love it. It's fabulous.
So how long would that be that you've been baby wearing now?
My baby just barely turned 3.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. Kind of bittersweet.
Yeah. So are you still wearing your 3-year-old?
Yeah, I'm still wearing my 3-year-old. I even had my 6-year-old on my back the other day. He was having a rough time and just needed some attention. And there's something about being in a carrier and the compression that it provides and the closeness that can be really soothing for for, kids and even the bigger ones. So
I know we have some hammocks in my boys' room. My husband made this cute little pirate fort and it has hammocks. And even I enjoy, just like you're talking about, that like pressure.
Yeah, that pressure relaxing. And that feeling cocooned. And yeah.
Yes. And have you seen baby hammocks? Now I'm going to have to link to it.
There's baby hammocks?
There are baby hammocks.
Baby hammocks,
and it's like where you put your baby, just like you put them in like a mama-roo or whatever, but it's like a baby hammock anyways. But it's the same idea, that it's that like cocoon of like the uterus and, all of that kind of.
No, that's really cool. I'll have to check it out.
It'll be in the show notes. Okay, so tell me what is excellent about a baby wearing group, because I knew from being in the birth world that I could search online for a local baby wearing group, but I have a feeling that there are some people listening that have no idea what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so being part of a baby wearing group is really cool. There's usually educational stuff in there. So if you're like, hey, I have this carrier, it feels kind of funny, you can share a picture or a video of how it looks, and people can chime in and say, hey, try this or try that to try and make sure it's a better fit for you. I really love the camaraderie because, parenting is it has its moments, right? Mm-hmm. It's amazing. You love it, but it has those moments that aren't so nice. And just being able to talk with other parents and to realize you're not, the only one,
right?
So there's a definite camaraderie there. And then just the support, for our group, we do education. We also do carrier rentals. So if you don't have a carrier, but you want one, but don't know what to get, it's kind of like finding the right pair of shoes or the right bra for you. What works for you may not be what works for me. And so sometimes being able to try something before you commit to spending money on a carrier can be really nice.
So the rentals, when you guys do that, is that like a lending library? It doesn't cost anything, or you rent them for a couple dollars for a certain amount of time?
We rent them, yeah.
I love that.
It's a library, but we do charge a fee for that so we can replace carriers as we need to, or diversify the library as new carriers come out onto the market. So
I love that. Okay, so how can women find a baby wearing group near them?
Facebook is probably where most of them are. In a Facebook search or even a Google search, you can look for baby wearing in and then insert your city or your county. And it usually pulls something up. And there's even lots of kind of general baby wearing groups online that don't necessarily have a library, but you can say, hey, this is where I'm at. Do you know if there's a group there? And they might be able to help chime in and get you going the right direction.
I feel like especially with 2020, right? Like everything turned online.
Right.
Like
everything's
we need support.
Everything's online now. Exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so let's dive in. I want to talk a little bit about my experience. You're probably going to tell me where I went wrong here, right? Or what I could have done better.
We can do that if you want.
But I was gifted a Moby wrap. And
okay. Me too.
Okay. Mind you, my kids are a little older. So this was, maybe 12 years ago that I was gifted this wrap. And I remember trying to wear my first baby and it came with instructions. And this is before there were a ton of YouTube videos and things.
Yeah.
But I did it. But I remember it was like super bulky. That thing
lots
is
of fabric.
Really long. Like I had to wrap it like 4 times around myself.
Me too.
Super stretchy. You're like,
super
is this tight
hot
enough? Yes. And certainly my baby was born in January, but by the time I was wearing them, even a month or two later, it was warming up a little bit. So just like you said, I do remember that being like,
I had an August baby.
Oh gosh. So you know.
I do.
I remember how frustrating it was to try and transfer the baby because he was like so little from my car seat to my carrier.
And they're so floppy at first. Yeah.
And it was just awkward. And so I remember this is where it came in like another thing I didn't learn until after I started teaching birth classes and getting connected to the birth community and postpartum community. And same thing, we had a positive birth group that we were running, and we invited somebody to come in and talk about baby wearing. And she brought, just like you did, all of these wraps and everything, and carriers and all this stuff. And I think because I had said, like, I'm really short and like the ergo, for example, doesn't fit me. It doesn't fit my torso.
Right. Yeah.
So she brought all these wraps, and this is where I was like, you're going to have to tell me what it was, because I don't remember even the name of it. But I remember that it was like, it had a carrier. It was fabric, had like this long space for baby in the front. And then it fit perfectly on my hips, and it had fabric ties that went around.
Okay. It sounds like a Medi.
Say it again.
A Medai. It's an Asian style of carrier.
That might have been it. But I just remember it because everyone would say, oh, the ergo, like that was the other thing. My babies were heavy and I'm tiny and like my back would hurt. And so they're like, oh, you have to get the ergo. It takes the pressure off of your back. It puts it to your hips.
Not if it doesn't fit you right.
No, but it wasn't. And it was really uncomfortable. And so I found this wrap. And as I said, my babies were at that time 7'5", and so I was wearing my 3-year-old around for that whole meeting. And I was like, this is so cool. Can I borrow this? Because I didn't get to do this. And awesome. So I did. And I have pictures of like, I was even wearing my 7-year-old at one point just to see if I could. And it was comfortable. Like I could have worn him for maybe an hour or so.
Kind of being goofy, but I wore my baby sister. She's 23, 24. And I put her in a wrap just being goofy. And I mean, it wasn't horrible. I mean, I wouldn't want to do that for an hour, but I mean, it wasn't horrible. So with the right carrier, it really makes a difference.
It was huge. And so I was super bummed because we thought we were going to have more kids. You guys know my story. We've tried and haven't been able to get there. But I was like, my next babies, I'm going to wear every single one of them. I couldn't wait. And anyway, so I thought, what a neat thing. I want other women to know. So that kind of leads into maybe we could start with some of the benefits of baby wearing. What I want to hear from you.
Oh gosh, there are a ton of benefits. So for me, I think it was really about the bonding, being able to be hands-free, using both hands to pull down my pants when I'm going to the bathroom instead of just one. And, kind of keeping them up and out of the way, if I'm cooking or cleaning and they still want attention, well, you still have to make dinner, right? So, it's a great way of being able to get stuff done while carrying a baby, but without hurting your shoulder, your arm, or your back as much as what you would just trying to muscle it through and doing, the hip carry with them in your arm.
Yeah.
And then this wasn't an issue for us as much, but I know it's been really helpful for other people. If your baby is colicky or has acid reflux, being upright in a carrier, especially after a meal, can really help with that and make digestion go a little bit easier and less spit up. It helps with bonding. If you're a nursing mom, it helps with establishing and maintaining a breastfeeding relationship with your baby. And strollers don't go everywhere, and those car seat carriers get really heavy. And so, it really allows you to just keep living your life, but with a baby in tow.
I love it. One of the questions I got was, when can I start wearing my baby? And it made me think of like my first experience. For example, like I had a cesarean birth. So like how long do you have to wait to do that? Or can you, if you don't have a cesarean birth, or maybe you can with a cesarean, you can? Oh,
yeah,
I want to hear.
You can,
okay.
Yeah. So, well, with a cesarean birth, it's going to kind of depend on you and how you're feeling. But I've seen a cesarean mothers start baby wearing in the hospital before they even came home.
That's
and
awesome.
So the biggest thing there is just making sure you're listening to your body. And I mean, the reality is you're going to have to hold your baby and carry your baby and take care of them anyways. A carrier is going to make that easier. And there's carrier options that are higher up so that you're not putting pressure on your incision. And then again, just making sure that you're listening to your body. So some moms do it right from day one. Some wait a few weeks. There's no right or wrong answer. It's other than doing what's right for you and your personal situation and circumstances.
Okay, that's awesome. I didn't realize that because I do remember how sore I was, and I may have been somebody who wanted to wait a couple weeks anyways. But but that's awesome that you can do it just right away. All right, let's talk about kind of what's involved. So, how old do babies have to be? It sounds like they can be newborn.
Yep.
When you're doing it.
You can actually even wrap them, before they're born if you want to support your bump as it's growing and take some of the pressure off. You can
use your baby wrap for that.
Use a baby wrap for your bump. Yeah.
I love it. I've definitely done this with the Rebozo, but I didn't think about the baby wrap. So I love that. But I know that there's questions behind too. What's the safety behind it? Because I know a few of them, right? Like your baby has to be close enough to be able to kiss them, and their spine has to be aligned. But can you talk about some of the safety?
Yeah. So as you're holding your baby on your chest, you want to think about having them positioned in a way to where you can snuggle them, you can kiss them, you can see their face. Their chin is lifted off their chest. As they're in the carrier, they can move their head from side to side, and that they're not in the carrier in a way that it's smashing their face against your chest. Some babies like to turn their face to where their face is against their chest, and that's fine, but they need to be able to move it from side to side. Okay. Their back should be in a gentle C curve is what we call it. And then the carrier ideally also supports their legs from knee to knee. And that just helps with the hip development and keeping their hips comfortable. I mean, if you think about it for you, if you're sitting on a tall bar stool with your feet just dangling and you're just barely sitting on it, you know, you're going to start feeling it's not very comfortable. Where if you're able to sit back all the way, even if your feet are still dangling, as long as you're supported to your knees, it's going to be more comfortable, right?
Yeah.
And same thing for your baby.
Okay, that makes sense. And then how about when you flip them from forward? First of all, front facing, right? Like when you flip them from being up against your chest to like facing outward so they can reach and touch.
There's inward facing, and then there's outward or world facing. And that's kind of up to the baby. Some babies like it, some babies don't. If it is something you do decide to do, I know the general recommendations, and it varies a lot from brand to brand. Each brand will have their own different set of rules and guidelines. But it has a general rule, about 6 months, they need to be able to sit up and to keep their head up. Because if you think about it, it's a world-facing position is more tiring and exhausting for the baby. And when they're facing you, as their body slumps forward, they're using you as a support. And they don't have that when they're facing away.
That makes sense.
And so being able to support their own head and keep their airway open. And then if they start falling asleep or look like they're really getting overstimulated and upset, then, you know, turn them back to face you. And then as a caregiver, keep in mind that outward facing is less comfortable for you as a caregiver because babies, if you think about how their spine curves and how they tend to fall forward, right? They're pulling their weight and the center of gravity away from you.
Yes, I remember this.
Whereas when they're facing you, the center of gravity is going in, right?
Yeah.
And so those are just things to keep in mind. It's not necessarily bad or wrong. It's just some babies love it, some babies don't. So, and it's just doing what works best for you and your family.
What do you do if you have a baby who doesn't love it? Do you just not wear them, or do you force them till they love it?
A little bit of both. Okay. I mean, it depends. I mean, there's been times I've gone places with my kids, and even if my kid didn't want to go in a carrier, I was outnumbered, right? Like, I'm sorry, I know this isn't what you want. You're going in a carrier because mommy only has 2 hands and there's 3 of you. Right.
Safety.
Or we're at Yellowstone. You guys might literally die if you run off the boardwalk, right? Yeah. And you're just young enough and unpredictable enough.
Right.
And then if the baby doesn't like it, there could be a variety of reasons. It could be maybe the carrier doesn't fit quite right. Maybe it's a sensory issue. I have worked with a handful of families whose children have sensory stuff, and they've been okay with some carriers, but not other carriers.
Interesting. I wouldn't have thought of that.
And then just making sure that like their basic needs are taken care of, that they're fed, that they have a clean diaper on. If it's not something you do a whole lot of and they can tell you're kind of fiddling around with the carrier and nervous and uncomfortable yourself, then sometimes the babies pick up on that. Yeah. They're empaths, right? They pick up on that and that tension. And so sometimes, a change of scenery can help with that. So going outside or for a walk, or even just turning on some music and bouncing around the house can sometimes help with that.
Okay.
So
those are good. That's good advice.
Yeah. And then some babies just don't like it. And I mean, you as a parent get to decide if you're going to do it anyways or not.
Yes. I know. The ones that were easiest for me, like I did find like a super cheap carrier at Target. It was not comfortable, but I loved that I could like shove my baby in there and snap. And then they were like, well, you like it or not, like we're stuck here together. But it was not comfortable, and it was forward facing.
I know the carrier you're probably talking about, and not the most comfortable of carriers, but you know,
but it does the job when you can't have the stroller and all that. But it did make me think. So I never put a baby on my back until they were 3, and I tried the carrier. That was nice. So what age can you move them, or at what development can you move them to your back? Because that was the hard part too, is when I had a baby forward facing and I am trying to make dinner or something, you can't.
Right, because they're sticking their feet in the saucepan, right? Yeah. So this is probably going to raise some eyebrows, but you can actually do back carries right from the get-go.
Really?
Yeah. But with the caveat that you're using the correct kind of carrier.
Okay. So find a baby wearing group and ask.
Yes. Find a baby wearing group or a consultant and ask, and we will get you hooked up. So but most people.
How do you get them on your back? They're so little, and like, I'm like, I want to see this.
Okay. Yeah, I can show you. There's different types of carriers you can use for doing back carries with newborns. I know I had the opportunity in one of my many baby wearing groups that I'm in on Facebook of talking with this mom from South Africa. And they do back carries as soon as the umbilical cord falls off.
Wow. And it just has to do with a wrap then?
Yeah, it's a wrap. So a piece of fabric, you could mimic it with a towel. It would probably be the closest thing we have here, or a short woven wrap. And, obviously, I feel like Africa is a little bit different from the U.S. Most of us, if we've seen baby wearing, it's not been a terribly common thing, whereas she learned how to do it when she was something like 6 or 7 years old.
To carry siblings.
And cousins, newborns, and on her back.
That's so interesting.
And so kind of different cultural paradigm there.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, actually, that kind of moves into the next portion where I want to talk about what are the quote-unquote best wraps or carriers, right? Because maybe you could talk about the different kinds. Like
I can talk about the different kinds. It's hard to say what the best one is because, again, it's back to that, what's the best bra out there, right? Like, it depends. What do you like?
Right.
So you were telling me about your Moby. So that's a stretchy wrap. It's kind of like t-shirt material, and they're long. I think they're something like 18 or 20 feet long.
Too long.
Way too long. And so lots of fabric, and they do tend to be kind of warm because of how the fabric is stretchy and because of how the support of the fabric is. You have to have a 3-layer carry with a stretchy wrap. So
that's why they're so long.
That's why they're so long.
Got it.
You have to have the 3 layers to provide the right amount of support for your baby. Mm-hmm. And so they're great for newborns, but once your baby starts hitting 15 pounds or so, or once they start getting more wiggly and mobile and active and looking around, they tend to be less comfortable and start sagging, and that's probably the biggest drawback with that. And then you can't do a back carry with it. It's only on the front. So I feel like they're, in my personal opinion, a pretty limited use.
Yeah.
They're fabulous for the newborn stage and front carries, but not so practical in the long run. A cousin to that would be a woven wrap, where again, it's a piece of fabric, but it doesn't stretch. Mm-hmm. And you can do back carries with it, hip carries, front carries, and it's okay if it's only a single layer of fabric.
Okay.
And I feel like that's definitely more versatile than a stretchy wrap. But, again, it's a long piece of fabric, and you have to know how to tuck it and twist it and tie it, right? Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people, probably the most popular would be a soft structured carrier. It's kind of like a backpack style carrier. Okay. Usually has a waistband, some kind of panel for the baby's back, and then straps. And those vary a bit too. Some only do front carry, some do front and back, some do forward or world facing, some can cross the straps, some can't. There's a lot of variation there. But those are probably the most popular just because they're fast, they're easy, you're not messing with yards of fabric. And then the Medi you had is a variation of that where instead of buckle straps, you have longer straps that tie, but again, everything's kind of pre-structured almost, and so it's still reasonably fast and easy.
Yeah, that was my favorite part of it.
Yeah, and then there's ring slings. Ring slings are really popular for newborns. And I love them too, even with my 3-year-old, because they're just fast and easy. It's a piece of fabric. If you remember those belts that had like the rings that you had to put the belt through the ring, it's kind of like
I will
that.
remember these.
That's true. We were talking about this. We're old compared to the camera guy.
But yes, I definitely had them, all my long shorts.
And so it's kind of like that. It's a piece of fabric with rings at one end. And so it's a one shoulder carry. So if you have shoulder, neck, or back problems, that may not be the best fit because it's an asymmetrical weight distribution. But for a really fast, quick up, or if baby's in and out or whatnot, it's a pretty good choice. And that was my personal favorite for nursing my babies.
Oh, I like that because you can nurse them right in the wrap. So that's something that I learned when I started learning about baby wearing too, is you can baby wear while you nurse and have your hands free.
Yes.
That's incredible.
Yeah, depending on the carrier you're using and the kind of technique you're using, it still might be an assisted carry, meaning you need one hand to help support your baby's head. But I mean, still to be able to like...
With how often you nurse.
With how often you nurse, and to be able to push a shopping cart or stir dinner with the other hand, that's huge, right?
It's very big, It made me curious too, for dads, are there... Because I don't see too many dads wearing ring slings, for example. Are there like preferences for dads or ones that that work a little better, or?
No, I think it's really kind of the same thing for dad. I mean, obviously the bra example doesn't apply as well, but shoes, right? What's the best pair of shoes out there? And so I know out of the dads I know who do baby wear, most of them do prefer using a soft structured or backpack style of carrier. Just, it's fast, it's easy. Yeah. That's not too girly looking is a complaint I've heard.
It's real.
And so, just finding something that's comfortable for you as a dad, a mom, or caregiver in general.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. And then what about, because like I'm tiny and I had to try on a bunch of wraps. I was really kind of sad that like some of these other wraps weren't working or carriers.
Yeah.
So do you have recommendations for like long torso, short torso, that kind of thing?
Yes. Find your local baby wearing group and see if they have a library so you can try stuff on.
I love it.
But otherwise, I mean, I could make some general brand recommendations, but again, it varies so much. I mean, because maybe if you have broad shoulders or narrow shoulders, that might be different too. Yeah. So and there's just lots and lots of brands out there.
Yeah. And I mean, I will say for being short, I did like the hybrid where it wasn't like a clip-in because I felt like those were structured differently.
I really loved the Medi too because, like you, the Ergo Baby was okay, but it wasn't the best fit for me. And a Medi or something with the straps that are extra customizable, if you will, made it lots easier to get a good fit every time.
Yeah, love it. Okay, I had a couple questions that I thought maybe we could cover. This came from the audience, and so I love these questions. One was how to wear your baby when you're pregnant, because I'm like, I didn't think about that, but if I'm pregnant and I've got a baby to wear, what does that look like?
So my personal preference was to use a woven wrap, but I'm kind of the odd duck there. Most of my baby wearing friends, like locally, don't like wraps nearly as much as they do the soft structured carriers.
Even while they're pregnant? Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And
so is it just a back wear at that point?
I wore one of my kids on the front. It was more of a hip carry, but in a ring sling. So so it kind of depending on what's comfortable for you and where you baby carries as you're pregnant, there's a lot of factors that can go into that. But my personal favorite was a woven wrap. Ring slings work really well too. I have some friends who even wore a soft structured carrier, and they would just have the waistband either be above their bump or below their bump. So that's something you get to play around with. For me, the soft structured carrier stopped being comfortable once I was probably 18-ish, 20 or so weeks, and I just stuck with wraps after that. And then there's what's called an onbuhimo. It's a Japanese style of carrier, and it's a kind of a backpack carrier but without a waistband.
Interesting.
And so one of my friends, that's actually her favorite style of carrier, and she was able to use it her whole pregnancy because, again, there's no waistband, so nothing to get in the way. Yeah.
That's really neat.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I had another question about how to wear twins, which, again, I did not think of this because this was not my story. So tell me about that.
So one of my favorite carriers when my kids were little was actually the Twin Go. It's a soft structured carrier that has a front and a back.
Okay.
And that was my favorite. But really, any two carriers, you can mix and match them however you need to. One usually goes on the back, one usually on the front, but not always. There's a mini monkey, which one of the admins in our group has twins. And the mini monkey was her favorite when her twins were too little for the Twin Go, and then they would both be on front, kind of off center towards her hips. And
that sounds nice.
Yeah. And I mean, while it was kind of awkward T-Rex arms, you know, at least she could still walk around and go to the bathroom and stir dinner if she needed to. And then once the babies were old enough, they'd be fighting and stealing binkies from each other. It was kind of, it was funny. Yeah, it was cute.
Speaking of the bathroom, that was another question we got. Can I go to the bathroom while I am baby wearing?
Yes, and you should. don't hold it. Don't wait. And it's lots easier because you have both hands for pulling down your pants instead of just one. And somewhere I have a picture of, I think he's like 3 or 4 at the time, and he's on my back and handing me the toilet paper.
I love it. Yeah, so, I was telling Annie before we jumped on that it wasn't the best wrap, but that was like one of the reasons that I loved that carrier that I got from Target, because we would go shopping at Target and I wouldn't have to like bring the whole cart in or like figure out how to get them into the, right? Because you take the whole cart into the, the handicap stall?
Right. Like, where are you going to stick your baby?
And then once there's one more of them, you're like, well, shoot, now what? Like, I really have to go to the bathroom. So I loved having them strapped on, and I just strap them on front.
One of our admins, her oldest, had colic really bad, and if she set him down and he started crying, he would cry for 3 or 4 hours. And she said finding Babywearing was life-saving, because then she didn't have to set him down to go to the bathroom or try and figure out how to do it one-handed. And
I love that. So smart. Okay, something I mentioned earlier that drove me crazy, and I'm hoping you have a little bit of advice on, is taking baby from the car seat into your wrapper carrier, and how irritating that can be, or like just hard, I felt like, to be doing it. So what is your advice for that?
Yeah, so my advice is to find a carrier that works for you. If you're using a stretchy wrap, maybe put it on and tie it at home so you're not playing with it in a parking lot and, some people walking by and staring at you like, oh, hey, do you need help?
Right.
Because if they don't know what they're doing, and you don't want their help, okay? No, not when it comes to baby wearing anyways. And so, trying to set it up beforehand. I know for in the car, I really love having a ring sling or a soft structured carrier, because then it's not yards of fabric. Yeah. It's relatively quick and easy to use. And then you just pop them in and you're on your way. So,
okay, worth it to pull a sleeping baby out to put him in your carrier while you walk around the store?
Sometimes. Okay. Sometimes. I know with he's basically 5 now, but he was big enough. He wasn't in the infant carrier anymore. He was in an actual car seat that, you can't just pull out of the car. And he would always fall asleep, always. And so I would just put a carrier on, toss him on my back, go shopping, toss him back in his car seat.
And he'd stay asleep.
He'd stay asleep,
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I worried about thinking about my babies. And I had that Moby wrap, and like you were supposed to it is not easy.
Yeah, stretchy wraps are kind of tricky. You got to tie them tighter than you think you need to tie them. And then there's a couple of tricks that can make them easier.
I could have used a baby wearing group.
Yeah. No, they're amazing. I didn't do it hardly at all with my first 2 because I didn't really know what I was doing and it wasn't comfortable. And
So how did you come upon a baby wearing group?
When I was pregnant with my second, my doula told me about the local baby wearing group,
Nice.
and that's actually the group that I volunteer with now.
Oh, cool.
And thanks to, postpartum depression and whatnot, it took me probably 9 or 10 months after having my baby before I actually went to my first meeting. And so, just the group I'm with, we are 110% come as you are. If you haven't washed your hair in who knows how long, you're covered in spit up, can't remember if you brushed your teeth this morning or not.
You're one of us.
We don't care. You're one of us. Come anyways. Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Don't let those fears stop you from coming because baby wearing is amazing. And yeah.
Well, like you said, the other women that are there, like not only are they baby wearing, but they're moms.
We're
they're
moms.
Going through it.
We get it. Life with kids is messy.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. And you need that love from each other. It's so important.
Yes.
Okay. One more question, and then I'll let everyone know how to connect with you.
Okay.
One of the questions that we got was, does everything just kind of carry on as normal, or how do we keep things carrying on as normal as we baby wear?
Yeah. So, really, I'm a belly dancer, right? And I would put my baby in my carrier and go to class because they wouldn't take a bottle and I'd be gone just long enough. You couldn't let them go that long without eating. So I would go to dance class with a baby and just wear my baby the whole time. I would make dinner, I vacuum, I've done yard work. If you're going to be really active, make sure you're staying hydrated and that you're bending at your knees and not throwing your back out or whatnot. But yeah, life just carries on as normal, just with a little bit of extra weight. So if you're not used to it, start off slow.
Yeah.
Start off slow and then ease into it. And
awesome.
Yeah.
That's good advice. Thank you. Okay, so tell everyone how they can connect with you. I know that you're local to Utah.
Yeah, we're local
Weber
to Utah.
Davis.
So if you're in Utah, just Baby Wearing Weber Davis County or Baby Wearing Salt Lake. I'm with both groups. Even if you're not in Utah, you're still welcome to join those groups and to send me a message. My name's Annie Roskelley. You can find me online. We also have a Facebook page you can message. It's facebook.com/Babywearing WDCO. That's short for Weber Davis County. And that's our business page. You can message me there. We have our email address, which is babywearingwdco@gmail.com. Yeah, that's how you contact me. Or, you can call or text. My phone number is 801-784-3819, and I'm happy to try and connect you with a group that's in your area if you're not in Utah. So
that's awesome. And these are somewhere that people can come online, like you said. You can... kind of like you said, you can take pictures and ask for advice.
Yeah, you can take pictures, ask for advice. I know on Facebook there's Everyday Baby Wearing and Baby Wearing 101 that are kind of just basic general baby wearing groups that anybody on Facebook can join. They can be a good place to get advice if you need a fit check or something. And then they can also help connect you with local people in your area too, which is something I'm also happy to help with. As part of the group, we do offer baby wearing consults. We do video chats. We do in-person stuff. Meetings are on hold right now because of COVID and the cold weather.
Sure.
But we're
That's
hoping
awesome.
to
Video
start
chats
doing
and consults.
Yeah,
Sign
we're
me up.
hoping to do more of that once, we're past the worst of the cold weather and germ season. So, yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much. I feel like this has been so helpful. I know that I've learned a ton. I hope that the listeners have learned a ton too, and I appreciate your time. So thank you for coming.
Yeah, no, thank you. It was fun.
Yeah. That's it for this week, but make sure you subscribe to the podcast so that you get notifications first as I drop a new episode every week. And don't forget to head over to myessentialbirth.com for all of the free downloads mentioned here and to join the birth course and community serving pregnant moms just like you. If you enjoyed this and other episodes, I would love it if you would take a few minutes to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. I read every single one and include one at the beginning of each episode. See you next week.